Good evening and welcome to the Alachua County School Board meeting for March 5th, 2019. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance led by the students from J.J. Finley, and please remain standing as they perform our national anthem.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hail, and the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, all the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the hopes bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Good evening, Mr. Chair, board members, Superintendent Clark, and district administrators. March is Music in Our Schools Month, and I'm happy to be here to kick it off with another fantastic performance from one of our elementary schools. Music is a vital part of a child's development and education. Studying music is crucial to brain development, enhances learning in other subject areas, helps students develop discipline and focus, and encourages students to think critically, creatively, and work collaboratively. Our elementary music programs will be collaborating over the course of the next couple of weeks to put on a few different concerts. The concerts are March 11th at Lincoln Middle School, March 12th at Glen Springs, March 14th at Childs Elementary, and March 18th at Lincoln Middle School. All concerts are free and open to the public and begin at 7 p.m. It's a pleasure to welcome the Finley Flyers 4th and 5th grade chorus and instrumental group this evening. Each of these groups meets once a week for 35 minutes for after-school rehearsals. These students participate in additional performances throughout the school year and are extremely dedicated to performing in this group. Tonight, the Finley Flyers will be performing My Town, My World and Hammock Holiday. Please join me in welcoming Mrs. Freeman, Mrs. Barouse, and the Finley Flyers Chorus and Instrumental Group.
I'm only one person, an individual. You've got your own life too, some feelings natural.
I'd also like to thank Findlay Principal, Ms. Valdez, for being here and certainly supporting this wonderful music program. I'd like to thank the citizens who voted for the 1 mil that helps music and a whole lot of other things in our schools. I'd also like to recognize a distinguished alumnus of Findlay. Our school board attorney, David Delaney, is a Findlay flyer. And former principal of Findlay, Deputy Superintendent Donna Jones. And if you're at Findlay and you're walking around campus, she has her own road there. It looks to me like Ms. Freeman is packing up. So is that? Are we good on that? But boys and girls, thanks so much. Absolutely wonderful, beautiful job. As a music teacher myself, I'm so appreciative of your hard work and certainly with your wonderful teachers. So thank you. Before we move on to the agenda, I wanted to read a brief statement for public participation. To members of the public joining us this evening, welcome, and we're glad you're here. If you wish to address the board, we ask that you fill out a public comment form, which we have available in the back of the room. I will call on individuals in the order that I receive the sheets. If we are not able to get your comments in the initial 15-minute period, you may address the board at the second public comment period at the end of the meeting. If you wish to address the board on an item on the agenda for this meeting, please also fill out the public comment form and come to the microphone when that item is reached on the agenda. Please remember that each individual has 3 minutes to address the board. Please focus on issue and input while avoiding personal attacks. Thank you. Now for the adoption of the agenda, there are 2 changes to what is printed. One is we are pulling item 6 in the consent agenda. We're just taking that off because we had some numbers that were not correct, so we're going to have to bring that back on a different meeting. Also, we are pulling action item number 1 because there is no need to have that vote. So with those 2 changes, do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Motion by Dr. McNeely, seconded by Ms. Roy. Now, is there any discussion?
Mr. Chair, consent item G. Yes, G9. Sorry, G9. I'd like to bring it to action item, please.
So you would like to pull number 9 to action items, and so we will go ahead and move. Why don't we just move that to replace action item 1? We'll make it so consent agenda 9 will now become action item 1.
Thank you.
You're most welcome. And I don't believe, Mr. Delaney, we need to. That's because any board member can always do that. So we're still voting on the. We already have a motion and a second. We're voting on the agenda as amended. Any further comments? Okay, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Next, approval of minutes for the February 2019 school board meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Motion by Dr. Paulson, seconded by Ms. Roy. Any discussion, corrections?
Yes, I have this.
Dr. Paulson.
If you look at page 1, down by Career and Technical Education Month, and I realize I don't speak loud enough in here a lot of times, so I'm going to try to make sure I speak into the microphone. Instead of just saying Dr. Paulson inquired about an alternative initiative, I think it was Dr. Paulson inquired about an alternative graduation track for CTE from the state. Initiative CTE,
Okay.
graduation track for CTE from the state. Does that read all right?
Sure.
Dr. Paulson inquired about an alternative graduation track for CTE from the state. Because that's what I think was what we're talking about. And then I have another one on page 6, I think it is. Let me just get here.
Okay.
All right, it's in the middle there where it says Dr. Paul stated that the board, okay. That the board that approved this had the exact same concerns, but the program saved the district a large amount of money because of putting people coming back at the midpoint. Remember that?
Okay, got it.
I mean, there's a reason it saved money, it just didn't save money. And that was the reason. And,
Well, I will entertain a motion for those two additions. We can put them in the same motion, is that correct? Mr. Delaney, do I have a motion?
So, second.
Moved by Ms. Surton, seconded by Ms. Roy. Any discussion on the amendments to the minutes? Okay, now we're voting just on the amendments. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Now we're voting on the minutes, the total minutes as amended. And we have a motion in a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Now we're moving on to the donation of children's books, and I'd like to recognize Sandra Arnold of the Gainesville Garden Club.
I'd like to share some information with you all.
Can you get that?
Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to speak to the board. It is my pleasure to represent the Daisy Circle members of the Gainesville Garden Club. We strive to bring educational opportunities to young people on gardening, conservation, protection of amphibians, bees, pollinators, wildlife, and their habitats. To achieve this, we are donating 2 children's books, The Saved Seed and The Frightened Frog. And they're beautiful, creative books that were published from the National Garden Clubs. And we are donating 46 books to each elementary school in Alachua County will get 2 books. And we're pleased to be able to do that. It is our hope that by reading these books, the children will gain a love of gardening and an appreciation of nature. Most importantly, we want the students to learn about the need to care for their environment and all of its inhabitants. We will also be donating these books to each of the libraries in Gainesville for younger and older children to enjoy. Thank you again for the opportunity to share with the school board members and others who are present this evening of what Daisy Circle is doing for the children of Alachua County. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next, I'd like to recognize Mr. Darren Jones, principal of the Aquin Center. Aquin Jones.
Thank you, Chairman Hyatt, school board members, Superintendent Clark, and district administrators. During the month of February, Aquin Jones held an essay contest. The winner of our essay contest was Terriana Taylor, an 8th grader at Aquin Jones, who we affectionately call TT. She's also here with her mother, Miss Taylor, and also her other Aquin Jones family. Aquin Jones family, raise your hand. So they All right, in 3 powerful paragraphs, Terriana wrote about the obstacles in her life that were preventing her from being successful. However, Terriana has turned her life around with the help of her mother, counselors, and support from her teachers. When she was once withdrawn and angry, she has now become outgoing and happy. At Aquin Jones, we meet students where they are socially, emotionally, and academically, and build these students back up. I would like to thank Ms. Taylor, her mom, who has continued to provide the support and love that Terriana needs to continue to be successful. At this time, Aquin Jones would like to give her a $50 gift certificate, Visa gift certificate.
So proud of you. It's a wonderful thing. Thank you.
I have some words for you later. I've got them. I've got some words for her during my comments.
Dr. Paulson, did you have something? No. I overheard you, Dr. McNeely. You have something to say here?
Well, I did. I didn't know if you wanted me to save it for our comments, but.
Well, let's say, let's say.
Well, before she goes.
Let's say it, go ahead and say it while she's still here.
Okay, very good. Terriana, I know I butchered that, Taylor, so I'm gonna say TT. I wanted to congratulate you, and I was gonna say this later in my comments, for doing a fantastic job in your writing. I know Mrs. Roy would comment on that as well. Your writing, the way you carried it out, but for the mere fact of your story that you told in your narrative, I truly loved the ending. That ending was so powerful. Tough times never last, but tough people do. And so I'm going to carry that on because I figure I'm pretty tough too. And so, but I have weak moments like you stated in your writing. And so I've got to hold on to that statement. I wish you many, many congratulations. And you know what? Who knows where you're going to end up and or what, but my hope is you'll be a teacher. That's what I want you to do.
And Dr. May I interrupt and say, in Alachua County?
Oh, in Alachua County, in Alachua County. So I'm very proud of you. I know your parents, family, and school people, teachers and administrators are proud, but I have really been holding close to my heart your comments, your whole story. It's incredible, and continue to be strong.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, now it's time for, Dr. McNeely got a head start. I'm glad you did. Okay. We have board member superintendent announcements, and start with Dr. Paulson.
Okay, you know, a lot of times I don't ever have anything to say, but tonight I just asked a few more minutes than I normally do. First thing is, I'm on the Economic Development Advisory Council for the county, and we're having a census next year, Channel 20, and they're already starting to gear up. Now, they came and talked to us. They're gonna have, one person said 4,000 to 9,000 jobs, another said 6,000 to 9,000. Full-time or part-time jobs, and they're gonna be people in our community. I'm sorry they don't have their office open yet, so I couldn't bring that information with me. But these jobs will pay $15 to $20. Like I said, they'll be part-time to full-time. So this will be a great opportunity for people in our community, and just pay attention. We'll try to bring it to them when we see it up here, and you look in the newspapers and look for these jobs, because I know people are always looking for jobs, and this is a chance to make a job with a decent salary. So I think that's important. The other thing is every year we have to update our priorities and look at our strategic plan. And tonight we're going to talk about when we're going to do that, hopefully in a workshop in the next couple of weeks, because we've done it March of last year. Another thing is, I just thought I'd like to review. I saw somebody want to speak about a strategic plan. We put a lot of work into a strategic plan. I think Jackie Johnson would agree to that. And, but I like to review what happened. I know I came on the board in 2010. Mrs. Roy was on the board then. And they didn't have a strategic plan. They had one back in the beginning of the century, but right before the turn of the century, 1998. So, at Gainesville Sun, March 8th, 2011, by Jackie Alexander, workshop starts the process of schools adopting a plan for the future. It's the first strategic plan since 1998, and then it quotes me, school board member Paulson, said having a strategic plan is imperative. It gives us focus. It gives us a simple way to communicate with the community, and it aligns us and unifies us. And I think that's still true today, and it's like true in every strategic plan. 2014, Gainesville Sun article, they asked me about what the biggest issue or constituents is raising the performance and test scores of all our students, particularly in the eastern part of the county. To do that, the district needs to follow closely the strategic plan. And then later on they had workshops. But you can see we've been working on a strategic plan now for 8 years. What we do with the strategic plan, we developed a mission statement. A mission statement has to be simple. It should be where everybody in the district knows it, can go in the school and say, what's the mission statement? They should say it. And we come out, we are committed to the success of every student. I've heard a lot of people come in here and quote that, but that's the mission statement. But then we also have a vision statement that's a little more involved. You were involved with this too, Mrs. Roy. And it says, we will graduate students who have the knowledge, skills, and personal characteristics to be lifelong learners and independent thinkers. Our graduates will excel in their chosen careers and be productive and contributing members of the global community. So that's those two things. Now, I had these, I'm not going to read all these, but I keep these things. I'm a pack rat. But I always said, I had a lawyer tell me once when I was president of the union, you better be careful what you write, you might have to live with it. So I try to keep everything. I want to show you one thing too. You need to, we involve the community. And people say, well, we need to get together and involve the community. These are just 3 schools here. I know Hawthorne is not there. Jackie, I think you led the meetings. And then we wrote these things down. We came up with this booklet here. This is input from Eastside, from Rawlings, and from what is that, Littlewood. We try to go to I know we had another one in Hawthorne. If you can remember, Jackie, we had another one too, I think. But people, Eastside's pages here is over 10 pages. Comments from people that we've used that to try to put our strategic plan together. Same thing at Littlewood. We have the comments of community members, parents, teachers, employees in the district, all in this booklet, which I should have Hawthorne, the other one, but I don't have it with me here tonight. Anybody ever wanted to look at this? This is what we did to put our strategic plan together. And I've had people say, we didn't involve the community. That's why I keep these things. This is not involving the community? I think it is. And I think you did a great job, Jackie. Thank you. So then, now where are we now with the strategic plan? We also need to take, right here, excuse me. This is the chronology of the strategic plan. And where do we get these ideas? I know I've been involved with about 6 strategic plans with different organizations. I've been on the Juvenile Justice Council for 22 years. Mrs. Roy's been on, I think now, probably 14. And we were involved in a strategic plan, probably Mrs. Roy more than I was. And we developed it. Tony Jones wanted a strategic plan and tie everything together. And this is what came of it. It's funny because we were just talking about this last Friday at the Juvenile Justice. And this is something that runs that organization. It's a great thing where you can go around and you know where you can go to get help. Because there's a lot of nonprofits that some of them do, you know, they do the same thing. So if we know what everybody's doing, we know where to send kids and their parents to get help. That's what they did with this strategic plan. And I know a lot of things I've faced from that strategic plan. I said that Friday, didn't I, Mrs. Roy? And I think that we needed to point that out too. I also, we had a strategic plan for the EDAC, the Economic Development Advisory Council. We worked on that, and I've had that in here too someplace, but I won't have to worry about it. And the other one I've been involved with, I was involved with the school board strategic plan in 1998. The person that developed our strategic plan was Mrs. Hollinger. Did a tremendous job. But she went back and got all this information from the past. We looked at the strategic plan that was in 1998. We looked at other people's strategic plan. I have one from one in Pennsylvania that she brought in. And we went to put all this together and put together our strategic plan. Now, our strategic plan is not something that was set in stone. It can be changed yearly. That's why we should meet yearly. One thing that we were hiring a new superintendent. One of the things that we came out of that with was a couple of those other candidates, their districts met quarterly or more. So, you know, I think it would help us to meet more. Tonight, again, I said we're going to discuss what our priorities are. Last year we had 5 priorities. And this year we're going to, who knows, we can set 4, we can set 6, we can set 5 again. But you know something, I learned a long time ago. I've been in charge of you know, about 5 or 6 different organizations. You need a plan. I remember when I coached at the University of Florida, I was a football coach. We had what we call the Florida 4, because if we are looking like fools, we knew there was something we could work, it would work for us, and that was these 4 plays, and that was our Florida 4. Otherwise, you can be a jack of all trades, a master of none. So that's why it's important to set priorities. Now, one thing, the question that came out in the past, I've heard some people say, well, what do? We forget about the rest of the strategic plan? No, we don't forget about anything. We just set our priorities, and that's the ones we try to make sure will get done. At the same time, we continue to work on the whole strategic plan. We had a workshop when we set priorities. I remember people left there and said, we just came in here because we thought we were just going to see the development, some further development strategic plan. Actually, what it was for priorities. So anyway, I think it's good to go back over what we've done with this. I think it's a work in progress. We went back in March 17, 2015, when Dr. Roberts came in. We tried to synthesize his priorities that he had when we had a workshop into our strategic plan. So that's what you do with things if you want to change it. It's not like it's set in stone, like I said. So I just thought a little history lesson on what we've done. We have 7 goals. We have action plans in those goals. We've taken things like from other places, like a clearinghouse for mentors. That came from the juvenile justice. They talked about being a clearinghouse. And that's where that idea came from. So tonight, I just thought that would be my longest speech on this since I've been on here, and other people have had it, so I thought I could just have one. And I hope everybody sticks around and watches what we say at the end of at this meeting about our strategic plan. We should need to get it in a workshop. It's snuck up on us. It was last March when we set these priorities, and these priorities were the priorities that drove us last year, and I think we were successful in all 5 of the strategic plan priorities. So, knowing that, if anybody ever wants to borrow this workshop from me, from reading at night before you go to bed, come see me, okay? And I'm sure we can get another one from our district. It's good reading. And believe it or not, I actually go home and read these kinds of things at night. Because I think it helps me understand, it keeps me up to date, and not forget things we did. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Sorton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To our audience, I thank you all for coming and joining us. I have a few notes that I'd like to share and pick up back with Sharon on the wonderful Principal Aquin Jones. I think for those of you all who haven't been here in previous meetings, I got my hands on Dr. Deetra Houchin's PhD thesis, and she did a phenomenal job of researching the early academic history of Alachua County, and one of its prominent players, I guess we should say players, or leaders of that particular movement. And Mr. Aquin Jones, he came here just to kind of catch, because there's some of y'all who weren't here. He was the initial principal of Union Academy, then the first principal of the New Lincoln High School. And since Dr. Paulson kind of opened up a door of our strategic plan, and I knew we would be planning today, I went and took a part out of the dissertation that talked about the type of leader that he was. Everyone in the community really revered him. He passed a number of years ago, but when you hear folks speak about Prof. Jones, as he was called, a term that's always used to describe him is that he was a visionary leader. And it's a very short quote that I want to read out of here, but I think it's very powerful. And I think any leader of any organization, any group of people who are striving to do something, you don't have to be the leader, but you really want a leader who can cast vision, and then you break it down into actionable steps so you can get something done. But this quote is from Mr. John Rawls, is how he described Prof. Jones after he had passed. He said, Mr. Jones was a visionary leader because he was able to look at the present and anticipate the future. And then he tried to get students prepared for that future. Not just students, he also tried to get his staff prepared for that future, and so that they could in turn prepare the students. When there was a need in the school system and they didn't have staff, or the district wouldn't provide staff, because it's often quoted in the paper how the district just neglected the school, Prof. Jones looked out among the staff that he brought in or in the community, and he picked out and encouraged people to further their education so that they would be a benefit to the school and to the community. He knew that they didn't have a library at the time. And he encouraged one of his students who had an interest in reading, and they just had a little room with some books that people donated after they cleaned out their closets and things of that nature. And he encouraged this particular lady to go to school and to further her education during the summers so that she could be a librarian. And he told her, it's quoted in here, that he saw that they would be hiring a librarian soon, and she had an interest in it, and he thought that she had a skill set that would be useful, to the community. So the community rallied around her and sent her to school during the summer so that she could finish up her degree and be able to be the librarian in the school system. And the same thing happened with Coach T.B. McPherson. Coach McPherson was a student at the school, went away to school, he was a stellar athlete, and then he came back and coached 7 years undefeated, didn't lose a game. I mean, we all know how hard it is to go one season and not lose a game. Can you imagine going 7 seasons? And Mr. McPherson ended up finishing up his master's degree at Columbia University and coming back, and he did a whole lot of things around the recreation area. We know the McPherson Center on Southeast 15th Street is named after him, but all of them spoke highly of the visionary leader that Prof. Jones was. And I tell you, whenever I hear people, my older relatives, and we heard earlier that Miss Cromwell mentioned Thelma Jordan. Miss Jordan was my cousin, and she talked, just of the visionary leader that Prof. Jones was. So, and having vision, he may not have had a strategic plan as called as such, but he had a plan for what he wanted education to be for African American students in Alachua County, and he didn't rest until it was well on its way. Thank you all.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Roy.
Thank you, Mr. Hyatt. Just wanted to say that Dr. McNeely and I were at the Motown Memories program, the Black History program at Rawlings, which was just fantastic. So cute, and I'm really glad to see the Gainesville Sun covered it with a number of pictures of the kids. And one thing I was disappointed that we didn't get to hear Dr. DeVito on the drums. He has the most wonderful drum corps at Rawlings. And we heard him at the Junior Achievement Breakfast. And he sent us all an email saying that he's going to be performing with the Rawlings Drum Corps on March 20th at the Hilton, along with other music educators. And, they will demonstrate their skills. So I'm going to try to make it. And it would be great if others could too, because he is such a gem in this community, and he does so much for children, first at Aquin and now at Rawlings. Sydney Lanier, pardon me. Yes, Sydney Lanier. Okay, that's all. And also I went to the Black History program at Idlewild, which is very nice as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. McGinley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to congratulate Leela Ward, who is a student at Glen Springs Elementary. She started a team of students to help with homework. And they do this after school during the EDEP program, and they're targeting first graders and second graders. And I really appreciate when students take the leadership and say, I want to do this to help other students. So congratulations, Leela Ward, and we want to promote you and others so it'll catch on at other elementary schools. Samantha Jones I've recognized before, but I wanted to recognize her. She is an 8th grader at Bishop Middle School, and she has just received her notification that she will be going on to Eastside High in the International Baccalaureate program. She's looking forward to that as a 9th grader in the fall, and we just want to say congratulations. Mrs. Roy has already touched on the Motown Review. It seemed like I was in Harlem at the Apollo Theater because they were that good. Congratulations, students. And during the last week of Black History Month, I had an opportunity to gain some more weight because I attended Idlewild Elementary Feast. They called it a feast, and it was. Mr. Leonard Marshall and others did the cooking. And if you know anything about him and his biscuits, well, I just needed some Alaga syrup. Also, I attended Lincoln Middle School Soul Food Fest with the superintendent. She was enjoying herself just like I was enjoying myself. We didn't sit together because I didn't want anyone to see my ribs on my plate, and she probably didn't want people, she says exactly. But to Dolores Golston, who is a retired educator, who comes back every year to that school to help do this gigantic Soul Food Fest. Thank you so much. My doctor has fuss, but it's too bad. It was great. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And Ms. Roy, are you done?
No, I am done, thank you.
Okay, now we're moving on to citizen input. 15 minutes will be provided for citizens to address the board prior to the regular business meeting. It is requested that citizens keep their comments to approximately 3 minutes. First up this evening is Mr. Norm Tankersley.
Thank you very much for giving me a couple minutes to say thank you for something that we came to ask for. It's already been taken care of. We're going to ask you, please don't schedule classes for our students on Veterans Day, November the 11th. We're very sensitive as veterans about the memory and the honor of our fellow veterans, and we appreciate, and I found out tonight, this board does too, and we just want to say thank you.
And I would like to, and of course I want to say thanks to both of you, thanks to all veterans, but I want to thank the people that really made this happen, from the president of ACA, Ms. Ward, and our representative, and all, because it was the committee and all that met and made this change, Ms. Wise from the district. So it's cooperation from the union and the district. We're so happy that that happens, and that made it possible, and I'm sure that the board will be able to take care of it totally officially 2 weeks from tonight. But thank you both for your service, and thank you for honoring your fellow veterans. Okay. Next is Jasmine Wade.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Once again, my name is Jasmine
Pull your
Wade.
mic down.
Pull it down. Okay.
Yeah, so we can hear you.
Okay. Good enough?
Good.
That's good.
Okay. Well, as nervous as I am, I just wanted to come and address some concerns that I had about my son at Duval Early Learning Center. I just wanted to say that the situation was wrong. It was unfair. And I also feel like if it was caught on video, like why would you guys allow her to just leave with pay? Like if GPD ruled it out as child abuse, then why wasn't she arrested? I feel like that was like a slap in our face. It's no justice being done. I feel like if it was y'all kids, then you guys would have you would have arrested her on site. And I never even got contacted about the investigation. I just felt like the state attorney just, dragged it out, and here I am, being told that, that they wasn't gonna prosecute her. I feel like she should have been arrested. Enough is enough, and I'm not just coming up here for my child. There's other kids that's going through this. I had so many people reaching out to me about this situation, and all I hear is that they've been telling people, teachers, and they came to the school board about the teachers hitting kids, and all you guys do is brush it up under the rug. So I'm just coming here to ask, if it was y'all kids, what would you do? How would y'all handle this situation? Would you just let it be? Because I'm not going to just let it be. I'm not going to do that. Justice for my son.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. White. I'd like to refer you, please, to our Assistant Superintendent, Mr. Purvis, and if you could give him your contact information, he would be willing to meet with you in person tomorrow, or talk to you on the phone, whichever is more convenient for you. And so that's the way we're going to do this. Mr. Purvis, if you please raise your hand. And so if you would give him your contact information, and we'll move from there. Next is, let's see, Latasha, is it Holly? Holy, thank you.
Hi, thank you all for allowing me to be able to come up here and speak to you all. My daughter Jasmine Wade, it was my grandson that was involved in that incident on December 11th. The question that I have for the board is, after it happened on December 11th, why did it take so long for you all to, on the news we were told that the teacher resigned before you can fire her. My question to you is, were you really going to fire her? We just really want some answers as to why this took so long from December 11th, and all of a sudden now, when it has come into the public eye, this teacher was supposed to be fired, but she ended up resigning before then. My daughter said a lot of things that I was going to say, But my question to you all is, if this was your child, your grandchild, what would you do? This is completely unacceptable for a teacher who's supposed to be educating our children to pick my grandson up, and she didn't even sit him down, she just kind of plopped him down, and then she hit him. She hit him. If I was to hit my child in public, and on top of that, she hit him in front of the school body of other teachers and students, little kids as young as my grandson, if I was to do that in public, CMS would have been called on me immediately, and I would have probably been in jail. So I'm trying to understand your process of how you investigate teachers when they are actually caught on camera. It's one thing for this process to have taken long if it had not been caught on camera. But because the evidence was there, why did it take so long for you guys to say that you made a decision on camera to fire her? No one had never contacted my daughter to let her know the process. I think that it was an epic fail, and we just really want answers. Now, we do appreciate the teachers that come out and work with our students. We understand it is a hard job for all of them. And we as parents have to do our job to raise our children. But there are teachers out there, especially the one that we have experienced, that they don't have the right attitude. They don't have what it takes and what our children need in order to educate our kids. So we're coming to you guys. We're coming to you and we want answers. We just want to know what took so long. Thank you.
Ms. Holy, I will refer you also to the Assistant Superintendent. And if you'd like answers and what the procedure is, he will go through it chapter and verse. Next, how are we doing on time? Mr. Moore?
We still have 3 more minutes.
Oh, wonderful. Okay.
I'm sorry, no, we have 6 more minutes.
Oh, okay. Telfred Cartwright.
Good evening. Yes. Good evening. My name is Telfred Cartwright. I'm Chair, school board members. Okay. My public comment is about STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mechanics. I was partially raised in Palm Beach County, and I attended schools in Palm Beach County. And currently, the Palm Beach County School Board will be working with a new STEM school. And the school will work with children as early as pre-K. I have it here on my phone. It says kids will feel like scientists, engineers at school's $3.6 million lab. Now, there's the Cake Museum here in Gainesville, Florida, but I think that's more so associated with the University of Florida. I think that the Alachua County Schools District needs to take the bull by the horns and think about allocating funding to possibly building a STEM center to work with the schools. I think it's been long overdue. There's the University of Florida's College of Engineering off of Northeast Waldo Road, but I don't think they take more of a proactive approach to work with the schools. Take for example, I have my oldest son. I introduced him to science, technology, engineering, and mechanics by exposing him to things at an early age. We take him to the Mosi Museum in Tampa, Florida. He just received a scholarship for $78,000 for Stanford. So he's en route to graduate from the Santa Fe College with his AA and his high school diploma because he's a member of the dual enrollment program. We transferred him from the IB program at Eastside High School because it wasn't challenging enough mathematically and scientifically. So excuse me, my throat. But I implore this school board to think about possibly looking into having a STEM center constructed to work with the schools. And the perfect place could be the eastern portion of the city. And that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Did you want him to see Ms. Wise or
He's
Mr.
out the
Berry?
door.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Next, we have the consent agenda.
You still have.
Well, Dr. Vanilla, I've got it. We have time for one more, sure.
Okay, thank you.
If you
thank
state your name,
I'm Anna
please.
Burr Curtis. I'm one of the union reps, and I'm a bus driver. Got some more bus drivers in here. And I'm kind of upset with the system. We got a raise. They say that we're getting the raise. 4% is like a slap in them drivers' face. I'm telling you, I drive for 4 schools. 4 schools. That's too much for anybody. We're short how many drivers today, Mr. Thomas? How many drivers were we short today?
Please address your comments.
Well, I need to know so I can tell you. We're short drivers because of the morale. It's not his fault. It's this whole system that's messed up. It doesn't make any sense that we have to drive what we do and take what we have to take off of these kids. I tried to quit. It's hard to do that, but especially when you care about these kids. I'm getting old and I need to know who's gonna be taking care of me. So I need to know how they're gonna do this. These kids need us. We bus drivers, they're frustrated, they won't come to work. They're quitting, we're losing mechanics because of the little pay that we're getting. You're not paying them enough of what they have to do and go through. You're not doing it. I can't stand it. And I hear those drivers, they talk to me every day because they're frustrated and they're scared to say anything because they need their jobs. But they can't pay rent off of $500 and some dollars every 2 weeks. They can't pay a car note off for $500 and some dollars every 2 weeks. I don't understand that. I walked out the other day and get me wrong now, Mr. White, you got a new car? That upset me. Because see, we got drivers around here, cars are being repossessed while we out there on the job. I don't understand that. Take care of your own so that we can take care of them. I can't drive for schools all the time. Those drivers are tired. This young man drove for me Friday. Them kids cussed him like he was a junkyard slave. It's a shame. It's a shame. We need to do better. And in order for them to come to work and to enjoy what they do, they need some backing, they need more money. The system need to come together. You're forgetting about the bus drivers. If they don't drive them to school, how they gonna get there? Kids are getting to school late every day and home late every day. I know the parents are calling. I know they are because they're calling me. I drive 1 bus. But I'm driving for 4 schools. That's not good. That is not good. And if you don't, I wish we could boycott. I declare I wish we could, but I know we can't because you'll take us serious then. But they're not coming to work. They won't come to work. They don't care anymore because they feel that you don't care. I can't say everybody.
Could you please wrap it up?
I will. See, that's my point right there. Oh, Jesus, help me, Lord. That's my point right there. You need to hear what these drivers are going through. Okay, Mr. Hart, I'll come to your office and I'll talk to you. You may not like what I say and how I say it.
You're welcome to talk to me at another time. But right now, I need you to have a seat.
Okay. When is there another time?
You can make an appointment with me. I'm happy to talk to you.
You have anything to do with transportation?
Ma'am, I need you to have a seat.
Do y'all hear this? Thank you. I will be talking to you.
Okay. Now, moving on to the consent agenda, what we're going to do is, I'm going to turn this to the superintendent, but we are eliminating 6. We're moving 9 to an action item. Ms. Superintendent, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I recommend that the school board approve the consent agenda as described in items 1 through 5, 7 and 8, and 10 through 14.
Okay, do I have a motion to that?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Motion by Ms. Roy, seconded by Ms. Surton. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Okay, now, we're moving to action item 1, and that would be Mr. Purvis. It's actually consent agenda 9. Okay.
Mr. Chair, the superintendent recommends that the school board approve the DES contract for the employee listed as stated.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Roy, seconded by Dr. Paulson. Any discussion, please? Ms. Surton.
And to the chair and my colleagues, I asked for this to be removed off of the consent agenda because I had objections to the last DES appointments that were presented to the board 2 weeks ago. And I still have those same concerns, so I didn't think it fair to vote as such. I know where my colleagues stand, but that's the reason why I put that off. That's the only I have. So I thought I wanted to vote the same way on this.
Appreciate that. Is any further comment? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Board members McNeely, Roy, and Paulson, and the chair voted aye. Board member Surton voted no. Action item number 2, Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Chairman Hyatt. As you recall, we had a workshop on board policies back on January 29th. I have tonight the majority or vast majority of the policies we discussed at that workshop. You'll see some additional ones at our next meeting and maybe some more in May. But for the ones that are presented tonight, the superintendent recommends that the school board approve the proposed adoption, repeal, and amendment to board policies as set forth in the attached documents for advertising, and schedule a public hearing on April 16, 2019 at 6:30 p.m.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Roy, seconded by Dr. Paulson. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Assistant Superintendent White.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The superintendent recommends that the school board approve the appointment of Mr. Tom Mason and Mr. Shane Johnson as the at-large members on the half-cent surtax oversight committee as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Roy, seconded by Dr. McNeely. Any discussion?
Mr. Hyde?
Ms. Roy?
I just wanted to say I did look over the backup on all the applications by the people that submitted for the at-large positions. And I noticed that Ms. Suleg, which was my delegate, is Dr. Suleg. She's a PhD. Since other people are identified as such, I thought she should be too.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Paulson?
Yeah, we're gonna come back, because I know I've handed my person in too. Is there another time when we're gonna approve it?
The board, the individual board
They don't have to be-
appointments are not approved by the board. You each have picked your own, and so basically
Fine, just
that's who you
checking.
select. These are the only ones that would need to be officially board approved.
And I'd like to add to that, Mrs. Clark, I'd like those names revealed in some manner. I see 2 of the members here tonight, and they kind of thought their names would be put out there.
Absolutely do not. Okay. I have to look through my backup. I don't have a regular number, so it'll take me just a moment. Okay. Thank you. I just have a pile of things. So do we, So, Mr. Delaney, would you recommend they go ahead and vote on those two first and then have me read the whole list, or which would be the best way to proceed? Doesn't matter? Okay. So the representatives appointed by board members and the groups outlined in the bylaws. Ms. Karen Alford was selected by Board Member Certain. Mr. Jason Hasler, selected by Board Member Hyatt. Mr. Al Losh, selected by Board Member Paulson. Pastor Carl Smith, selected by Board Member Dr. McNeely. Dr. Sue Legg, selected by Board Member Roy. Mr. Brian Scarborough, selected by the Superintendent. Dr. Carrie Bush, selected by the Alachua County Council of PTAs. Ms. Karen McCann, selected by the Alachua County Education Association. Mr. Dean Cheshire, selected by the Greater Gainesville Chamber of Commerce. Mr. Stephen Van, selected by Citizens for Strong Schools. And then the last two are the ones that you're about to vote on, Mr. Tom Mason and Mr. Shane Johnson.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for requesting that, Dr. McDowell. Any other comments? Okay, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Chairman Hyatt. This is another agreement through the Wild Spaces Public Places initiative with the City of Gainesville. Superintendent recommends that the school board approve the agreement addressing the fields between Lincoln Middle School and Williams Elementary School as presented.
So move.
Second.
Hard to get a second tonight sometimes. Motion by Ms. Roy, second by Dr. McNeely. Any discussion?
I want to say it's a wonderful, sorry.
No, you're already on, so I was going to go on.
Okay, thank you. This is just a wonderful collaboration that we have with the city and the county for the wild spaces. That'll make that field much more usable, I think. And of course, as a note, it has a park in there besides the playing soccer fields. So I just want to say happy that this was able to be worked out.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. We're now back to citizen input, and it provides an opportunity to address the board. It is requested that citizens keep your comments to approximately 3 minutes. And the first form I have is from Julie Crosby. No, Julie Crosby, okay, yes. I see the hesitation. You were gonna wait and talk when we did.
Yes.
I think, I think I want you to stay here, hold on. Mr. Delaney, because we're not having a motion, we're having a discussion, if she's going to comment, now would be the appropriate time, is that correct?
Sure, it's the board's discretion. She could you could take the comments now, or you could take the comments at the beginning of the discussion about the strategic plan.
Okay, let's go ahead and take them now if we could.
Sure. Is that okay for us to switch places? For me to go before Julie?
Sure.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair, Board members, Superintendent. My name is Courtney Simmons, and I'm here this evening because I would like to learn more about the strategic plan and the process that the school board follows. I've been attending ACSB meetings for the past few months intermittently to learn more about the schools and the community here in Gainesville, and I was very excited to see the discussion item, process for developing board strategic planning, on the agenda this evening. I do have a few comments about the strategic plan. Attached to this evening's agenda was a copy of the 2018 and 2019 strategic priorities. I'd like to thank each of you for your dedication to these 5 initiatives. I know personally that 2 of them have been successful. One was the half-cent tax for school facilities, and the other was the implementation of our action plan for equity. Before a new plan is discussed, however, I would like to learn if there's a structured mechanism in place to report out to the community
the progress that has been made for the 2018 and 2019 strategic priorities. With regard to strategic planning, I would like to request that the board members consider soliciting, again, perhaps as Dr. Paulson explained, it sounds like in the past there have been initiatives to get community and school feedback for the strategic plan. I'd like to suggest or request that you continue to keep those communication loops open, and that providing a forum for people to provide input into the plan is a concept that has worked particularly well in other school districts. And it's my understanding that this has not been done for several years in Gainesville. I would also like to ask that the Alachua County plan be developed as a multi-year strategic framework that incorporates current national trends based on research. For example, a heightened awareness of mental health education and a concentrated focus on early childhood literacy. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening, and that's that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, are we good with Ms. Crosby now? Is it okay to go ahead? Thanks.
Sure. Julie Crosby, private citizen, grandparent of a kindergartner, Alachua County Public Schools, with 2 more soon to follow. Board members, Chairman Hyatt. I also would like to request the board engage in a robust process for creating a comprehensive, fully fleshed out strategic plan that is measurable and timely and current. I agree with Ms. Simmons' call for a report of outcomes from the 2013-2016 plan. Since we are now 3 years beyond the expiration of that full plan and document with no clear, as far as I could find, progress reporting. The passing of the half-cent tax, and before that, the 1 mil, since the previous strategic plan in 2016, are not likely to be replicated. I know the 1 mil is coming up again in 2020, and not likely to be replicated without a multi-year, fully formed, accountable plan with a full vision for the future and related goals and action plan. If we continue to use the kick the can year-to-year approach that we're currently on, particularly because citizens are now primed from the recent new school and what has come from the half-cent, where some citizens found themselves for a variety of reasons confused or uncertain about the idea that a new school would be funded from that. So now they're primed. They're primed to ask questions. They're primed to want to be engaged and to have a plan, a fully fleshed out plan as to how their dollars are being spent. A strategic plan and including them would help with that process. It's time now to begin that plan and the planning and getting everything in order so that this can be produced for 2020. We have also an identified weak area that would require strategic planning. We've identified this significant achievement gap. We've brought laser focus to the needs of our African American student population. Subsequently, we have the equity plan that Ms. Simmons mentioned. We know that this will take more than 1 year to implement. The board should be strategizing ways to weave that plan in and through your own strategic planning. By weaving this through your plan, we can give the plan a significant boost. It should be incorporated through all areas of the strategic plan. We need to, if we really want and mean to make quicker progress, we need to catch up to decades of neglect of these students. We also have a wonderful opportunity to collaborate on early learning initiatives like never before with passage of Children's Trust since the last plan ended, but only if we have planned for such collaboration. Early literacy should be a focus of our strategy and a primary goal. But without a plan, none of these things would be possible. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I do not have any further papers, so I think we're going to move ahead. Ms. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, board members, Mrs. Clark. As Dr. Paulson pointed out, March 20th of last year, the board had a workshop to reach consensus on its strategic priorities for the 2018-19 school year, which were then adopted by the board on April 17th. So we are at that time again, and all we wanted to do really this evening was to hear from the board on how you wanted to go about developing your priorities for the 1920 school year. You should have a copy of last year's priorities, one of which in particular is well, it's relevant, but it's done, and it's the passage of the half-cent. But some of these others you may want to stick with, so you may want to be adding additional ones. You will see from what was in your packet, did you not receive that?
No.
Okay, I'm sorry, Ms. Ramos, but I made copies just in case.
Good, because we didn't get it.
And you will see some of the target dates for these were also August of 2019, so we have obviously not reached that date yet. But certainly, as Dr. Paulson pointed out, this is the appropriate time for the board to develop its 1920, especially as we head into the budget-making process. So really, all we wanted to do tonight was to find out how the board wanted to approach this. Did you want to have another workshop? Did you want to do it at a school board meeting? How did you want to do this?
Dr. Paulson.
I think I could piggyback on that DES workshop. And then I think, and I'm glad you pointed out about the example of the competitive salaries. It's August of 2019 we're looking at that.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a multi-year plan.
Yes.
And it's not something that's stagnant. We do need to meet probably more than once a year. I said that at the beginning, I think, didn't I? Mm-hmm. And I've been pushing for that, and I hope we do. When I said our lowest for the beginning salary, we've raised that 18% in 3 years. We want to get to $15 by August of 19, which is coming up in this bargaining. Right now, we consider, because we give health insurance to people that work 4 hours a day. Nobody in this district does that. I'm not going to go into why I think the cities has some money that should be coming to this district. And that has annoyed me. But the salaries now, counting, if you work full-time as an ESP in district support personnel, you would gone now to 1092 for the salaries, and then with the 322 cost for an hour for their health insurance, that's 1414. If you were a 4-hour employee, which we do it because those are some of our neediest employees, and they work 720 hours a year, we're spending almost $20 an hour on that. And I have no problem saying that because those people need that. And nobody else does that anywhere. And most of our employees, we have many of our bus drivers are guaranteed 7 hours, which is more than any other bus drivers anywhere. And I think when your people in Marion County will walk 4 hours, ours are 7 hours guaranteed, but they're making about they're costing us about $16.50 an hour. But these two, we want to get all our employees over 15, then we'll come back and we will re-look at this and try to go. I'm not against $15 an hour for salary. I just says, as Bernie Sanders says, have a plan. If you know, and he's the guy that started all this. But he also says, you gotta have a plan. And I think we do have a plan. So, I appreciate the statement about the multi-year plan. I left out our district advisory council. They've helped us with our strategic plan. That was put into works to help us communicate with the community. And we need to, and so this is something we've gone in the past, haven't we, Jackie, about our strategic plan to the district advisory council?
In the beginning, yes, but since
not
then
last
they've had
year or so.
specific tasks.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, and you're right, we need to meet on a regular basis. Ms. Clark, haven't we talked about that? Me and you?
Yes, sir.
And I think, wouldn't hurt us to meet at least on a quarterly basis. But I think that we go into DES, plus I have some things in the DES I want to talk about. We can go in there. It shouldn't take us forever to get our priorities. I think if all our employees, our board members come with their priorities, and then we'll work together and see what our 5 priorities will be for this year. I think safety was our #1 last year. I think we did a lot, we were more than most districts for that. They have sales tax, our salaries. We said we want to raise our teachers to the top 2/3 of the state. We're only, without putting the 4% in this year's salary schedule, we're only 7 slots away from that. We've got up 11 slots in the rankings. And I already told you what part of that, part of it was for the ESPs. I've already mentioned that. We said we would have no D or F schools. Last year we had no F schools. Hopefully, I don't know what we're gonna have this year. Be nice if we had no D schools. And we're also looking at raising the scores of the lowest 25 percentile district-wide, which we have done with our strategic plan, set goals, haven't we, Mrs. Clark, for every school, every 3rd graders?
Yes,
in
there are
the
goals, there are
district,
target goals for every school, yes, sir.
Yeah, I just want to put
And
that out.
different ones.
And the equity plan, as I mentioned when I first wanted to have a strategic plan, it wasn't a gap I mentioned, I was mentioning the scores though in the east side of Gainesville. That was 5 years ago. 5. So it's not a new idea. So I just, and you don't have to believe me, I can give you the newspaper article. So I've been waiting a long time to answer some of these things, and now I am. I think we've come a long way. We appreciate everybody who gave us input tonight, and we'll take that into consideration, I'm sure, Mr. Hyatt.
Certainly.
And, but hopefully we can piggyback on the DES workshop, because we need to get this done. We can't let this go. I mean, it's been a year.
And I'm sorry, I don't have the calendar in front of me, so I'm not sure what time of day the DES.
4 o'clock on the 18th, which is a Monday.
We probably need to go earlier than that.
Yeah, I would have to find out, okay. So we may need to start then a little bit earlier to get both done in time. So can we get back to the board on dates? Dates and times?
Right, so if we wanted to do it prior to the next board meeting, to piggyback on DES, currently DES was supposed to start at 4:30, 4 o'clock, I'm sorry.
Why don't we start at 2:30?
So start at 2:30 or 3, if that's agreeable to everybody,
And
to do that.
if we end up with a break, then good for us.
Sure,
but-
yeah,
But let's make sure we have time in case it takes longer.
And
Would that be good for everybody? Calendar
I
wise?
think we have worked,
Yes.
I thought we had the governance.
It's already
meeting that day.
piggybacked with the governance for Head Start.
Okay.
Yes, you are absolutely
Okay,
correct.
thank you, Dr.
Let me pull the whole schedule up.
I thought the Head Start governance Head Start is, so that's not on.
And the one is on the 18th.
Okay.
Correct, Head Start governance training is at 3:30.
3:30 the next day.
The next day.
Okay.
So if we had a 4 o'clock, so if we're doing, let me get to a regular calendar too as well, just so
I like to make the suggestion, I think we, with the Head Start governance, today we saw that we ran up against the time, and I felt that there may have been some citizens that wanted to comment, but we said, oh, we're gonna cut this off at X number of time right before 6 o'clock. So I think we're rushing to do things when we stack the meetings that close to the 6 o'clock. That's just my opinion. As Dr. Paulson has spent the time to express how he felt. I'm okay with us having it on the DES day, but I do think we should back it up so we can have sufficient time. It's not right before a meeting, but if we don't take the time out to make the plan, and I understand I've worked, and not as long as you have, as my colleagues have worked on a job since I am younger, but, and I know how sometimes you work on something and you father it, and you really have an affinity for it, and you think it's good. And I think the plan that is out there posted and what was done in '98 and 2008, those are good things that were done. But here we are, 2018, and I think the plan that's online there, I think was dated, I had it, I can't even remember the dates now, I was trying to keep up with my comments, what I wanted to say, but 2012 or 2013, that's an out-of-date plan, that's an out-of-date strategic plan. And the board has done some good things, but we need to revise that plan, and we need to have, as the citizens commented, a coordinated, a concerted, have a framework for how we're gonna proceed. To have strategic priorities, those are some things we could work on. But we haven't even given, as a board member, a new board member, I haven't been given an update on what we've done and what's worked. when we had the grants that came before us and there were questions that I asked, there were people, like, oh, we haven't even looked at that, we haven't done that. So I feel like we're spending money, and we're gonna have to set, as Pastor Smith mentioned in his comments during the Head Start meeting, this is a different ball game. The resources that we have, we're gonna have to deploy the resources in a manner that we can get maximum bang for our buck. And if we wanna, I'm only one vote, so I can voice my, my opinion, and and present a case for the things that I believe in, but I think we need to develop more than priorities. I think we need to give direction. We need to get a report back from all departments, finance, facilities. We need to see, have an idea of what everyone wants to accomplish within a time period. And, Dr. Paulson has told us what some of the things we've done, and we're not discounting that, but I just think more fleshed out model, more detailed look at how we should do things and how we would get things done needs to happen. And to rush and get it done, try to say we can do it in a couple hours, I think is doing a disservice to the people that we represent.
Dr. Paulson.
The reason you're doing priorities, we are in the budget process. So we have to get, it steers the budget. So that's why it's the priorities. Nobody is saying, and I've said that, I'm gonna say it again, nobody says ignore the rest of the strategic plan. The strategic plan, it's not the 1998, it's not the workshop when they had it in 2008. This is a living document. It doesn't have to be revised completely. We can go over and find out, I think we will, have we done anything, are they out of date, they could be taken off, right, Mrs. Clark?
right.
Haven't we talked about that?
That's right.
Then we can look and see what's still working. A lot of work went into the strategic plan, and like I said, I've been on 6 strategic plans. Nobody will just take it and start over again. There's no reason to start over again. What we need to do is look at it, see what's out of date, that can be eliminated. See what's still working, what hasn't worked for us, and then and then extend it. As far as the budget, we have done amazing things with this budget. We were in trouble, and we raised the one. Please, all I want to do is finish.
Can I ask everyone on the dais to address the chair, not each other?
I'm just trying. We raised the 1 mil. Without the 1 mil, I don't know what we would have been in the recession. I personally raised $23,000 for the mill. I'd challenge anybody else that. Now, the other thing is we've taken a 50-cent sales tax, which we were falsely accused of not caring about the facilities. I won't say where, but we were. And when you look back, I sent somebody that did that emails, about 20 of them, trying to say it's about time we start writing things in the newspaper about the capital outlay money being reduced. I made it a priority for the Florida School Boards Association in 2012. Nobody wanted to pay attention. And you can say, people out there, things have been done. This school board has been pulling rabbits out of the hat. And we better, again, like I said, keep getting on the legislature, because we're going to look in that hat, there ain't going to be no rabbit. Let me give you an example, since we got into this, about the budget. 3 years ago, our required local levy was 5.1 mils. Now, I want everybody to understand that, 5.1 mils. Then it was reduced for the rollback. Rollback means you raise the same amount of money for the past year. If values go up, then you have a lower millage. That was 4.9. Well, then we went in with one of our legislators in there, and they came out of a conference. Your conference is when the House and the Senate get together, and it was 4.66. That was another $3.5 million. Those are the kinds of things we need to worry about if you want to worry about the budget. All right? And then the next year, it went down to 4.37 on the rollback, and this past year, it went to 4.08. Now, this DeSantis governor said he already wants to go the rollback. We're going to keep rolling back to what? When there's no taxes at all? Meanwhile, and to sit there and raise teacher salaries, 11 slots, and say, well, we haven't, that's not good. That's a fact. I'm not just making it up. It's a fact. I'm going to tell you something. Nothing I say, nothing will ever I say will not be backed up in writing. You can take that to the bank. I will not get up here and say something I just say is my opinion. Okay? And if you don't like that, that's all right, because I'm here to take care of this district, make sure it's financially in good shape, and our kids get a good education. And I'll fight to my death for these children. But I'm not gonna tell you things that are not true. This strategic plan, the reason I brought it in is because it was done with input. We're gonna get input. If you wanna find another way to get input from people, that's fine. If we have a workshop, people can come and have their voices. But a lot of work went into this strategic plan. I took a lot of abuse, didn't I, Mrs. Roy, for wanting one. I was told by the superintendent at the time, this is their strategic plan is what the state tells them. I said, I don't think that's real smart. So that's how I feel. As far as being wise with the money, I've been wise. Every place I went in, I've taken people in debt and put them in the black. Every place. And, you know, something, I'm as cheap as they get when it comes to things, and I make sure we spend our money correctly. And I take offense to that.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Paulson. Dr. McNeely.
I don't know how this will sit with the dais or the public, but I and Mrs. Johnson, you had stepped out for a moment while the speakers spoke as to the strategic plan and what should happen with as we go forth to work on the new one. So if you'll play the video at some point this week to hear what they had to say, because it's monumental. And I certainly, I shouldn't say agree, but I do. Some of the things that we have presented in our strategic plan, I'm not sure of all of the outcomes. And before you can start looking at, do you redo or do you revamp, you've got to know where we're coming from and what were the outcomes. I would like to have on each one of these items either staff, or we can do it in a workshop. I know we have a lot of workshops, but that's why we were elected, and that's why we have to serve in that manner, in order to talk with everyone up here instead of an individual to Ms. Johnson or an individual to Mrs. Clark. So for the public, that's why we have so many workshops. But I'm here to tell you, I heard Dr. Paulson talk about we have to really focus a lot back on the budget. And I know funding is an issue for any district. But when we still look at the disparities in our student achievement, when we have a crisis like we have right now in preschool and trying to save a major grant, I cannot say I would be in accord with what we did 5 years ago. We have to come back to the table, take a look at every outcome that we had, and acknowledge the good things and the things that didn't go as we wanted them to go. And then start strategizing all over. Yes, it's going to take time, and I don't think we can do it in an afternoon. It's going to take more than one time, and I hear about the budget and how it's impacting what we will do strategically, but this is not a rush thing, and we will want to have, I heard Dr. Paulson say, maybe 3 times a year, maybe every month, something can come up about what are the outcomes, where are we now? Unless I'm speaking to Superintendent Clark or picking up the phone calling Deputy Jones or Mrs. Wise or Mr. Berry, I'm not really understanding what we should have from all of this information. And if you have it and I slept on it or I missed it, tell me. But I would like to have a comprehensive understanding of everything that we outlined in our goals and objectives, the action, what are the outcomes, I would like to have that. I don't know if the other members care, but I want it. And as a sitting board member, the request I'm doing, I would expect to have it. The workshop that we are going to have, whatever the superintendent just said on the date and the time, we need to be cognizant of it may take 5 hours one day, 3 hours the next. It's okay because we've been elected to serve. One of the things that I want to chime in on, there are some people who love to talk about the finance. I'm one who loves to talk about the achievement of our students because we will be dependent on them at some point in time when they cross the O'Connell stage. Do we have them prepared? And what's going to happen to them once they leave us? You know, I even think there should be an outcome with that. How well are these wonderful students are doing once they leave the public schools? Do they have jobs? Have they gone in career tech? Are we going to bring vocation back? Our community has said so much about that. And so there are a lot of things that we need to talk about. And I'm hoping that the 4 other people other than just me will want the same thing. I can talk about budget just like anyone else, but that cannot be the caveat at this time, just that. Everything we need to look into, every single thing. And we do need to say we are a pre-K through 12 system. So many times we say K-12. I catch myself, K-12. But we really have a pre-K through 12. And so we have to do more than talk. We have to put action to our words and have an understanding that we could have a disagreement. It's okay. We don't have to be one all the time. It's all right to disagree. But as far as the citizens, I heard earlier tonight that the citizens had all this input and put in a lot in writing for several things. Do it again and again and again. We may even have to have a system and change with Attorney Moore some policy that people can have longer. I know we say they can come back at the end, and I'm so sorry the employees that were here maybe didn't understand that, because we have to be open. I don't care how long it takes. That's what we need. Get us out of being the last district in the state with the kind of gap that we have. I'm tired of hearing that. And so that means we've got to put more energy into certain things. We trust Mr. Rella. He is wonderful. We tell him that over and over. So maybe we won't have to stay as long on budget. But we will need Mr. Purvis because we know where we are lacking still in our hiring practices. So it's going to need to have a lot of talk about that. Mr. White, he's got to put, I got a call last night and today about School Live. And wanting to know where is it going to be. I gave them my best. Where are the children going to come from? Public is already stirred up about School I. And so we must have some decisions. We must have decisions. I've said to Mrs. Wise, the curriculum piece, the children that you maybe even in zoning, we've got such a long way to go. And so I'm just saying, roll up our sleeves, all members on board, no matter how long it takes. We may have to have dinner meetings. We do it for other organizations. Break like Mr. Chair said and come back. That's how critical we are in this system. And just because voters gave us their all when it came to the half-cent sales tax. It does, whatever we do now and in the future, it will impact this community, even when we are not here. And we may want other taxes and initiatives to pass. But if we mess up, I can guarantee you we won't get it again. I may come back, Mr. Chair. I'm going to get me some water, and I will decide if I need to say additional things. Thank you, Ms.
Roy.
I just wanted to point out that Superintendent Clark sent us a mid-year assessment of all the things that have happened and, towards reaching the superintendent's goals that were set by the board. And a number of them actually impinge on our strategic plan, eliminate DNF schools. A number of the actions that were reported by the superintendent deal directly with how to do that and what we've done to help those schools avoid that fate. Also, the equity plan is referenced in there and what achievement we've made towards reaching the goals of the equity plan. So if the board read those things, you would see that we are making progress towards the action items on the strategic plan. Also wanted to call out something that was on the consent agenda for tonight. The Florida Endowment Foundation for Florida's Graduates is funding, or hopefully will fund, a Jobs for Florida's Graduate grant for Eastside, Gainesville High, and Santa Fe High School. 50 students from each of those schools will be given, I'll tell you, robust work and life skill development programs for high school students who need supportive services to increase the likelihood of high school completion and post-secondary employment and/or education, which refers to what Dr. McNeely just said. We are getting our kids ready for post-high school, both employment and education. This grant is for $45,000 for each of the 3 high schools, 50 students per high school, and the district is matching that grant. The district is matching that grant. So I just want people to understand that we are working towards, achieving the goals that we've set in the strategic plan. We haven't been neglecting students, as was implied, over the last, 14 years since I've been on the board. We have not neglected students. Just want to point that out. Thank you.
Superintendent Clark.
If I may, Mr. Chair, just to get clarity and hopefully take into account the comments from the board. At our workshop on Monday, the 18th at 2:30, we could begin with DES, since it appears that this topic would garner probably more discussion than the DES. Begin with the DES, then move into looking at the strategic priorities. And what we will do is that at that time is we'll work with staff the next couple of days to look at each of the goals, each of the items that were in those goals. Now, some of those things have happened and come and gone, and they're not even relevant anymore. And we will report out on those things, but then also say this one needs to be eliminated because we can't do it anymore for whatever reason, et cetera. So we could bring that to the board on the 18th. It's a tight timeline, but we will pull that off. At that time, so you have that combined with a mid-year update for more recent things, because some of these things were finished in 2016, but we can say this is what we did, here's report it out, and then move forward from there. So we're happy to bring that to the board on the 18th.
Dr. Paul.
I'll make this real quick, and that's exactly, thank you, Mrs. Clark. I'm gonna make this real short. What I'm asking for is to have a meeting, set our priorities. No reason why we can't set the priorities. We can go there, if the 3 of us want something, or 4 of us want something, that's what we'll do. But the other thing about, then you say, we need to, then we got off on this, the first thing I said tonight was, you set the priorities, doesn't mean you forget the rest of the strategic plan. That's simple. That's saying exactly what you're saying, Mrs. McNeely, just in 20 minutes less. And it's, let's do that. I mean, I've been wanting us, that's why I fought for a strategic plan when I got on the board. And that's why I heard no other board member ask about getting the strategic plan and working on it. I'm the one that brought it up, and if you want to bring it up after we do the priorities, fine. We need to look at the whole strategic plan. We don't need to make, the words of using a new one, that doesn't even make any sense to me. You just take this one, it's a living document, and you work on it. So that's it. I made a motion next meeting, thank you, we just work on the priorities, then come back and we'll work on a strategic plan. I hope we work on it. Every 2 months, every 4 months, great. I love it. That's what you were saying, that's what I said before you said it, I don't know how many times. All right, that's it.
Mr. Chairman, I know it's out of order, but we didn't know you were gonna open the level of discussion regarding the strategic plan to this level.
This is a board discussion, and so we're gonna continue with the board discussion. Thank you.
Mr. Hyatt?
Yes.
If you don't mind, just so that I have a level of clarity, my understanding for tonight, and I think what's happening is we have two separate but certainly related issues. We have the strategic plan, which is a long-term plan. We have the strategic priorities, which are essentially a 1 year that help us, for example, develop in the process of developing the budget. So what I was prepared to get the board's input tonight was how we develop the 1 year strategic priorities that help in the development of the budget. But as Dr. Paulson pointed out, that doesn't mean the rest of the strategic plan is not still worked towards and not still there. So that's just the part I want to clarify for my purposes, because what I would be working on, again, depending on the board's pleasure, if we discuss both things, both the long-term strategic plan and the short-term strategic goals for the 1920 school year and fiscal year at this same workshop, certainly, but certainly the discussion and the work on the longer-term strategic plan, as Dr. McNeely pointed out, is a much longer-term process than the 1 year strategic priorities that we normally do about this time of year. So I want to make sure I have clarity from the board. Are we going to be covering both those issues at the next workshop? Is it going to be the shorter term? Because perhaps if for the shorter term, for the 1 year strategic priorities, it might help if perhaps in advance of that workshop, the board members individually send me what their maybe 5 priorities are, or the board wants to go another direction.
Yeah, I'd like to, let me make a couple of comments since I've not made any for a while. First of all, I'm sure that Dr. McNeely, who I've known for quite a while and who I've had the pleasure of working under her for 13 years, did not mean to imply that other members of the board do not care.
We don't care.
Wait, hold on.
You said I care, I don't know about if they.
I said I don't know.
I know. So
But we
I just
do.
wanted to say, I wanted to say that I'm sure you didn't.
Attorney, need your help. I need your help.
What's the question?
The question is, I have 2 colleagues, maybe 4, who feel that I'm saying they don't care. I said, I care, I don't know, and I think I said it in reference to the time that we need to spend on this strategic plan. Please don't pick me apart, I'm tired of that too. Enough is enough.
Well, I'll continue. Part of the need for getting priorities is the reality that the budget planning is upon us. Now, Mr. Rella and his department are setting up a budget. Their budget reflects the strategic plan and strategic priorities. I think putting, starting over and is not going to help budget planning that is ongoing. And so I would like, not in any way, to eliminate discussion about strategic plan. But I say that the immediate concern was, as I understood it coming in, was the priorities for the coming year. So I would like to ask if Superintendent and Johnson if we could first of all deal with that, and I think as far as the workshop goes, depending on the time involved, that can certainly very much go into looking into the issue of strategic plan, and also sort of the a comment that was made earlier by a member of the public, that there's concern about not knowing that that money from the half-cent sales tax was going to go partly to a new school. The numbers are, if all the money, and there still is other capital outlay money, but if all the money is from the half-cent sales tax, 6%, actually a little under, but I'm rounding up, 6% of that money goes to the new school. 94% goes to every other school in the district. Excuse me, you're out of order. So I'm saying that the facts of the plan that has been presented with specifics for each school, for each community, is 6% for the new school, 94% for everything else. So I just, that's been publicly stated, that's been publicly presented, and we had a whole workshop on that. So not to mention the whole build-up to how we did this. So I wanted to make those points. I think what we say is important. And if Dr. McNeely, if I was out of line and misquoted you or misunderstood, then that's on me. Then that's my problem. I started my statement by saying, I'm sure you didn't mean that. But I just wanted to go on record as saying that I believe all 5 members of this board are equally elected, all 5, no one above the other. All 5 members of this board care passionately about the children of this district. And it doesn't mean that we all have to agree, but I certainly do not question the motive of anyone on this dais. And so that's just, I felt like I needed to make that clear. And it wasn't meant as a challenge, and it wasn't meant to be offensive. Dr. Paulson, did you have Superintendent Clark?
Oh, I'm sorry, no. I didn't turn it
Okay. Well,
I actually did have one other thing I would like to say. And I think as a board and as a school district, we, if the public still has questions, please let's not blame the public, or not say blame, let's reteach. let's re-explain, because we need to make it clear as to what it was, but there has been some, I understand what you're saying, the documents, I have a book, a spiral-bound book that they went out, but there are some people who still have that, so why don't we just take that hit and say that we need to do a better job of explaining and making it clear, instead of like, because to me it sounds like we're just bashing the public. And then the other thing is, that's what it sounds like to me. So, and the reason I asked for an update, I read the superintendent's mid-year review. We cannot go forth if, you know, we're so wonderful, if we're so wonderful and we're doing so great, why we have so many DA schools? Why is Head Start on the hot seat if we're so wonderful? So that lets us know we got work to do. And we can't keep doing it as one year at a time. A 1 year priority list is good if you got a 5 year or a framework that's really jammed up tight. Our framework, I don't feel like it's tight, and the citizens have said that, and other board members. So, you know, we could be outnumbered and outvoted, but as again, like I said, if we think we're so wonderful, we wouldn't have all the problems and all the issues that we have. So it's obvious that we do need to spend time and work together as a board in a workshop setting, and not just try to come to a meeting and have a speedy meeting and get done with it. We need to really try to sit down and look and see what other places are doing and what we're doing well and report on that. I mean, that's not to say the staff is derelict, but we're not great. So we need to work to become better. We have issues.
Thank you, Ms. Sarah. Okay. Now, if Ms. Johnson, do you think we have any kind of clarity here?
I would assume, and if I see enough heads nodding, we will go. I'm assuming that at this workshop, the first priority would be to establish the 1 year strategic priorities, and then whatever time remains, and then the board can have a discussion about the strategic plan if it so chooses. And because again, that would be a much longer discussion than on the strategic priorities.
And I would hope that we schedule this in such a way where there will be adequate time. You know,
absolutely,
it's
to
not,
find if we want to cover both.
I don't want it to be, oh, we have to stop right now, time's up.
About 2 o'clock.
We'll figure it out and have all board members contacted to make sure that it works with their calendar. But my intention would be that we have that we aren't going to skimp on the time, that we're going to take care of the first order of business, and then whatever time we have to, and as Dr. McNeil has said, if we have to do it another day and another day and another day, we'll do that.
Sure. And if it helps to facilitate that first part of the meeting, if board members would like to send me their strategic priorities for the short-term strategic priorities, I can compile a list of those and share that with the board so everyone sort of has that common frame of reference heading into that particular discussion.
Mr. Delaney.
I was just going to say briefly, I think one of the things that we've been hearing is that there needs to be a discussion in the short term on the strategic priorities for the upcoming school year tied to the budget. The other thing that I think the board members have been voicing is that we need to have a discussion about our process for our strategic plan. So maybe we focus more on how that's going to go and public input and those kinds of things. So I would just want to make sure that we were noticing that and there was a common understanding, if I heard correctly. The second part of that meeting would be more about process for long-term strategic planning.
Okay, Dr. Paulson.
Look, I'll still say, this is how we get the DES, we do the priorities. We set up meetings for the strategic plan. You know, right now it's urgent that we get the priorities for our budget process. And then after that, we set up meetings. You know, we don't need a 10-hour meeting. We can go back and set up the meetings and we'll talk about the strategic plan. That's what I said at the beginning tonight, and to me, it's simple. It's just do priorities look at the strategic plan. We don't need to do it all in one night. But the priorities are urgent, more urgent than the DES, more urgent than the facilities.
Thank you, Dr. Paulson. Mr. Delaney? Okay, Ms. Johnson, are we?
Yes.
So, okay, I think
Yes,
we're
sir.
good.
Thank you.
Now, believe it or not, I think we still have board member superintendent request, and so, Dr. Paulson.
My request that I just said.
No, okay, we have.
I mean,
Okay.
I just repeat myself what I said.
Anyone else? Board member superintendent?
Well, just,
Okay, Ms. Roy?
just to say, we already have a 4 o'clock DES workshop on the 18th. Maybe if we put it at 2 o'clock, we could have the strategic plan priorities discussed. That gives 2 hours. And as Mr. Delaney and others have said, we'll go over at a greater depth in the long-term planning another time. Just a suggestion. I would be happy to do it anytime that afternoon.
Okay. Ms. Surton?
Superintendent Clark, just so you know, I spoke with Mr. Purvis earlier about some info I was going to request. I'll email him for the DES workshop. So I didn't have it written down with me when I came today, and he probably couldn't read it if I wrote it, so.
I can read it there.
I'm not so sure. It's bad.
Okay. Thank you very, very much, and this meeting is adjourned.